Good evening. Welcome to the January 11th, 2023 meeting of the Murrieta Planning Commission. We'll now call to order at 6 p.m. Madam Secretary, would you please call roll for a determination of quorum? When you have a second.
Commissioner King.
Here.
Commissioner Harlan.
Here.
Vice Chair Fisher. Here. Chair LaPaglia.
Here.
Let the record reflect all commissioners are present.
Thank you. Next, we will say the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner King for the final time.
Please stand. Right hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now move on to the approval of the agenda. Madam Secretary, are there any changes to the agenda?
Seeing none.
Thank you. I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner King, followed by Commissioner Fisher. Madam Secretary, please do a roll call for our vote.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Harlan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Fisher.
Aye.
Chair LaPaglia.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously 4-0.
Thank you. At this time, we will take public comment. Any person may address the Planning Commission on any subject pertaining to city business which does not relate to any item listed on the agenda tonight. Normally, no action may be considered or taken by the Planning Commission on any matter not listed on the agenda, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Madam Secretary, do we have any non-agenda public comments tonight?
Seeing none.
Thank you. Move on to the approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes from the November 9th and November 23rd, 2022 regular Planning Commission as presented. Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public that are requesting to speak on the approval of the previous minutes?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any members of the public requesting to speak.
And with that, I'll call for a motion and a second to approve the minutes from November 9th and November 23rd.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner King with the motion and Commissioner Harlan with the second. Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Harlan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Fisher.
Aye.
Chair LaPaglia.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously 4-0.
Thank you. Moving on to public comment. Public hearing. Public hearing tonight is a conditional use permit 2022-2553 for a tire store, which is Ramona Tire. Are there any members of the Planning Commission that wish to abstain or recuse themselves from this item tonight? And I'll just see, looking like no. Staff, may we please have the presentation and the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Fisher, and Commissioners. My name is Farah Bolican. I'll be conducting tonight's presentation for Planning Hearing Item Number 1, Conditional Use Permit 2022-2553. The project proposal before you is a conditional use permit for the use of auto repair service facility, a tire store at the subject site. The site is outlined in red over here. To the west of the project site is Interstate 215, and south of the project site is Clinton Keith Road. The existing land use and general plan zoning designation for this project site is commercial. The zoning designation for this project site is regional commercial. This is outlined in red as well, and it's seen as purple on the exhibit before you, labeled as RC for regional commercial. Here is an enlarged site plan for this project. You'll see that the project here is identified in red specifically. What you're seeing on the screen here is Vineyard 3, and it is The overall commercial center, the proposed use specifically is going to be located on parcel 2, outlined in red within that 5,000 square foot building, also known as Building U. It is important to mention a few background and prior actions that pertain to this site. As seen here, we have a prior approval by the Planning Commission on April 14, 2021. There's an approval for a development plan, DP-2018-1691, and tentative parcel map 37547. This approval is for a 32,120 square foot retail development. Associated with this is also a 7-lot commercial subdivision of a 6.65 acre vacant site. Part of the approval consists of retail stores, banks, fast food establishment, and auto-related uses. As part of the approval, the Planning Commission also certified an environmental impact report and adopted a mitigation monitoring reporting program for this project. Fast forward to approximately a year later, there was an administrative approval on June 16, 2022 to modify the initial approval for that development plan. SC 2021-2336 modified the initial approval. Scope of the modifications included alterations to the parking lot, pads, buildings, and reconfiguration of the parking area. It's also important to note that the total approved floor area was reduced from 32,120 square feet to 25,344 square feet. So the overall commercial center as we speak right now is currently under construction. No occupancy permits have been issued for this project site. So to summarize, the action before the Planning Commission tonight is to, as a request to initiate the use of the tire store. All the site improvements for Building U as well as this commercial center was previously authorized in the entitlements in this screen, which also includes a building where the tire stores are proposed to operate in. Attached, included in this exhibit is a site plan for reference. This is SC 2021-2336. You'll see that Building U, along with other pads for this commercial development, was approved. Here's an enlarged site plan for Building U shown here. This is the 5,000 square foot, which was previously entitled in the referenced entitlements in the previous slide. So this is a 5,000 square foot building with associated improvements. You'll see here there's 21 parking stalls approved on this site. You'll see trash enclosure and also, not really pictured here, but there's other site improvements shown, such as the access way and related landscape requirements for this project. 16 stalls are required for this use, which is the minimum requirement per municipal code. Four service bays are proposed for this tire store use, which means that the project is providing 5 excess parking stalls on site. Here are a few of the elevations that was previously approved in the original entitlement. So you see here is the west elevation, which faces towards Interstate 215. East elevations facing inwards towards the adjacent commercial center. This is where the service bays will be facing with the roll-up doors. Additional elevations are shown here. You will see the south elevation and north elevation as well. These face into the adjacent commercial sites. The maximum building height for this structure is 33 feet, which is well below the maximum allowable height requirement within the regional commercial zone, which is 50 feet. Also featured here in the elevations that were previously approved, you'll see some pitch roof within the tower elements, knee braces, stone veneer, and neutral color scheme, all of which are in keeping with the other adjacent pads and buildings that were previously approved within the commercial center. So the proposed architecture is in keeping with the surrounding center here. Here's a closer look at the floor plan for Building U. The larger area that you're seeing here, where my cursor is hovering over, is the repair area or tire store installation area. This area takes up about 4,100 square feet of the 5,000 square foot structure. The remaining 900 square feet for that structure is dedicated to retail sales as well as a showroom area. Staff has the following recommendations. Determine that the project is within the scope of the previously certified environmental impact report pursuant to the guidelines for implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA Section 15162, and adopt the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Murrieta adopting the environmental determination and approving conditional use permit 2022-2553 for a tire store use on a property located north of Clinton Keith Road and south of the terminus of Antelope Road in Murrieta, California, assessor parcel number 392-270-064, based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A and Operation Statement in Exhibit B. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we open the public hearing, I'll bring it up to the commission if we have any questions for members of staff. Commissioner King?
Can you go back to the floor plan slide real quick? The driveway that's off to the left there, can you tell me what that is for?
This driveway here?
Off to the left of the actual structure.
Oh, this is a queuing drive-through lane. This is to support a use to the south of the building, and I'll pull up the overall entitlement here. So building use situated right here, and this is a fast food establishment, which is building V to the south of it, and that's where that queuing lane is that you're seeing there.
Okay. There's no roadway or anything behind the building, I guess would be on the west side of it?
No, sir.
Okay. That was my only question.
Thank you, Commissioner King. Commissioner Harlan, any questions for staff?
Sure, thank you for the report and the details. One question on parking.
Sure.
So it looks like it calls for 15, the actual will be 21. In looking at the business plan or the business statement, it calls for staffing to be between 8 to 12 employees depending on business cycles. Is that incremental? Is there incremental parking for the employees, or is that included within the 21 spaces?
That's a great question. So our development code only calls for 4 stalls per service bay. In terms of how many employees are going to be on site, we are not allowed to request additional parking for that. Given that the tire store use is providing ample parking, which exceeds the minimum requirement, we don't believe there would be an issue in the minimum parking area required there. It's also important to note that there's a shared parking agreement for the overall center, and there's also access parking throughout the site should there be a need for additional parking for that project.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Harlan. Vice Chair Fisher, any questions?
Only one question. Is this a lease space?
That is a great question. I don't know if they're leasing or if they're purchasing this building. To answer your question, this entire center is going to be subdivided, and I believe there'll be individual ownership, but I don't know if they're going to be leasing or purchasing this property.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks. And I think maybe the applicant will have a chance to answer that question if we want to later, but I have no questions for right now. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:11. At this time, we'll take testimony from the applicant, if the applicant is here to give testimony. Go ahead and come on up and introduce yourself at the podium.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Connie Fox with Sage Investco, representing the developer.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Is there a presentation tonight or just here to answer questions if we have
I'm
any?
just here to answer questions. Farah did a fantastic job of presenting all this for us. And to answer your question, it is a ground lease. Right now, we have not sold off any of the parcels.
Okay, so since we have the applicant here, do we have any specific questions for Ramona Tire? Looking at none. Commissioner Fisher, any others? Okay, and I really don't either, so I think you can take a seat, and thanks for attending.
Thank you so much.
And next, we will move on to public testimony. Yeah, okay. Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments, starting with any proponents, opponents, or those neutral for tonight's Ramona Tire?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any public comments.
Okay. Well, we're kind of breezing through this, so I believe with that, do we close the public hearing? All right, moving along quick. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing 2 minutes later at 6:13 p.m. And if there's a need to discuss or deliberate, we can now do that before making a decision. And if not, we can just call for a motion to approve. Okay. Well, we'll do just that. I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve this CUP.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to determine that the project is within the scope of the previously certified environmental impact report pursuant to the guidelines for implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15162, Attachment 6.A, and adopt the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Murrieta adopting the environmental determination and approving conditional use permit 2022-2553 for a tire store use on property located north of Clinton Keith Road and south of the terminus of Antelope Road, Murrieta, California, APN 392-270-064, based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A and the operations statement in Exhibit B.
And I will second that motion. Madam Secretary, can we please do a roll call vote?
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Commissioner Harlan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Fisher,
Aye.
Chair LaPaglia.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously 4-0.
Okay, let's move on to the next public hearing item tonight, which is DP-2021-2442 and CUP-2021-2444, which I believe is an oil changer. Are there any members of the Planning Commission that wish to abstain or recuse themselves from tonight's item? Again, I could just take a head nod, looking at seeing none. Staff, do we have a staff report for tonight's second public hearing item?
Thank you, Chair LaPaglia. Yes, my name is Farah Bullocan again. I'll be conducting the presentation for this hearing item as well. So the project before you is Development Plan Permit 2021-2442 and Conditional Permit 2021-2444. A project proposal for a development plan and conditional use permit request to construct a 1,760 square foot 2-bay express oil change facility and a conditional use permit for the use of auto repair service facility at this particular location. This image here, you'll see the project site. To the east is Delhaven Street, south is Date Street, west is Date Street, and north of that project site is Murrieta Hot Springs Road. The existing land use designation for this per the general plan is commercial. Specifically, the zoning designation for this project site is community commercial. It's bordered in green there and the site is red. It indicated as CC for community commercial. Here is an overall site plan. This shows the commercial site for this development, also known as MSH 2.5. Part of this project site here consists of 2 adjacent commercial development, but specifically for tonight, it's only for oil changers, which is pad 3 here. And I'll go through the prior approvals as well that affects this site. So a background and prior approvals, you have here Development Plan 2018-1768, Tentative Parcel Map 2018-1769, Conditional Use Permit 2018-1767, and Minor Conditional Use Permit 2018-1981, all of which impact the overall larger development site, not so much pad 3 there, but it impacts pad 1 and 2 and also off-street or off-site improvements for this overall commercial development. So these projects were approved by the Planning Commission on March 25th, 2020. It's to develop and operate an express car wash in parcel 2, which is the right-hand parcel that you're seeing here directly abutting Delhaven Street. and also a fuel center and convenience store on parcel 1, which is the one that's directly abutting Date Street here to the west of the project site. This approval also authorized a commercial subdivision of a 2.47 acre site into 3 commercial parcels. The parcel map was recorded on September 29, 2022, and the site is currently under construction. So it's important to note that pad 3, this is a snippet of the previous approval site plan, was not a part of that development. However, access drives are going to be impacted, and it is referenced here that there are improvements that were a part of this that's impacting pad 3. Here you'll see the enlarged site plan for oil changers, which is going to be pad 3 or parcel 3 of this commercial development. Here you'll see the 1,760 square foot structure for the oil change facility. This site design features a dual queuing access lane, which accommodates up to 6 vehicles to queue to receive an oil change service. Vehicles will enter from the easterly side of the site, and they'll go through this queuing lane and exit towards the west of the project site. And they can either exit onto Date Street there, make a right, and exit through Delhaven, or also Date Street to the south. Here you'll also see that there's ample perimeter landscaping proposed along the public right-of-way. This not only helps for noise mitigation with the project impacts as well, but it also helps for screening for the service bays from view within the public right-of-way and adjacent commercial uses or future commercial uses as well. Featuring here on the site plan, you'll see 8 parking stalls. 2 service bays are proposed for this use. The minimum required parking rate per the municipal code is 8. 8 would be provided on site. You'll also see here there's a trash enclosure to service this site, and there's adequate drive aisle widths for circulation around this project site as well. Access for this project site would be provided by Date Street to the west, Date Street to the south, and also Delhaven Street. There's no direct access from Murrieta Hot Springs Road. This slide shows the elevations proposed for this structure. You'll see here at the top of this exhibit is the southern elevation, which is going to be facing into Date Street to the south. East, you'll see this elevation here, which is going to be where the cars will be queuing to enter the facility for an express oil change service. Here is the west elevation where cars will be exiting, and this is the elevation to the north, which should be visible as you head south on Date Street when you turn into Date Street from Murrieta Hot Springs Road. So the maximum building height for this structure is 26 feet, which is below the allowable maximum height allowed within the community commercial zoning designation, which is 50 feet. A few of the architectural elements that are incorporated into the building design features a stone veneer design there, as well as decorative cornice bands at the top of the parapet, as well as a cap on top of the veneer, and neutral color schemes is proposed as well for the paint palette, which is consistent with the existing or the previously approved commercial development on pad 1 and 2 for this overall commercial development. So their proposed architecture is in keeping with the other 2 pads that were previously approved for this commercial development. Here is a better imagery of what the renderings will look like once the structure is fully constructed. The top image that you're seeing here will be the view from Date Street, which shows the west and the north elevation of the structure. This is where the cars will be exiting once they receive the oil change service. Here at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see the view from Date Street, which is the east and south elevation is shown on here, and this is where cars will be queuing while they wait to receive an oil change service. Here is an enlarged floor plan of what is being proposed. You'll see the 2 bays shown here on this exhibit. The bottom of the screen there shows some equipment as well as material storage for the proposed oil change facility. And the top of the screen there is showing office and restroom use for employees, and as well as a utility room. I'd like to call up members of the engineering department to discuss an errata to the conditions of approval that were included in the staff report there. To summarize, the following modifications are proposed for conditions 95C, 95D, and 95H of the conditions of approval for development plan 2021-2442.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Brian Stevenson. I'm the city's contract traffic engineer. In reviewing the conditions, we noticed a necessary modification to these conditions. The condition as previously written called out for a 100-foot wide section of New Date Street to be constructed. That was incorrect. It needed to match the approved tentative parcel map and the previous two adjacent projects, the gas station and C-store and the car wash. So we rewrote the conditions to match those. Basically, it's to construct the frontage improvements along Date Street to 55 feet. That is to the center line, from the center line of New Date Street to their curb line of their parcel. And then it's an additional 1 lane in the southbound direction of New Date Street. So the ultimate improvements will occur once Rancon, the adjacent project on the west side of the street, develops. Also, the driveway on Date Street is going to be full access on an interim condition only. Once the full improvements go in, when the road's widened to its ultimate width, then the construction will include a raised median down the road so that that driveway is right in, right out only, but due to its close proximity to Murrieta Hot Springs Road. Do I need to read through each of these? Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe so. No, you're good. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that bit. Does that conclude staff's presentation?
Not quite.
Not quite, okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Let's see here. Staff has the following recommendation. Consider and approve the notice of exemption for infill development, Class 32 infill exemption, pursuant to California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Section 15332 of the Guidelines and Implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act. Secondly, adopt the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Murrieta approving Development Plan Permit 2021-2442 and Conditional Use Permit 2021-2444 for a 1,760 square foot structure and associated improvements for a motor vehicle repair and maintenance, specifically oil change use located at the northeast corner of Date Street and Old Date Street, APN 913-350-019, based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approvals in Exhibit A, B, and the operational statement in Exhibit C. Thank you. That concludes our presentation.
Great, thank you for that. Bring it to the commission. Commissioner King, any questions for staff? Nothing now. Commissioner Harlem, any questions for staff?
Yeah, just a question and a comment. Lots of detail here. Thank you. Just looking at the findings, right? So if I look at Section 1 and Section 2, Section 1, 2 and Section 2, calls out the proposed use is consistent with the objectives, policies, general land uses, and programs of the general plan and any applicable specific plan, right? And then facts, general plan land use 1 looks to provide a complementary balance of land uses throughout the community that meets the needs of existing residents and businesses as well as anticipated growth and achieves the community's vision. So I'm kind of reading that based on the zoning, right? And then it says, this project will achieve various goals within the circulation element, including ensure future development provides for a variety of commercial, industry, and housing that serves the spectrum of incomes within the region. It's consistent on both of those. Are we using any metrics to, for example, number of gas stations, car washes, fast foods, whatever that specific business is, relative to population, number of homes? Is there any metric data that is helping to drive that decision? Does that make sense?
Thank you, Commissioner Harlan. Yes, if you look at storage facilities, for example, what we know is that when your population increases, there's a 10 square foot per capita increase in storage needs. So as you have a growing population, you will still see more storage facilities. Same thing with gas stations. For a long time, Temecula had a lot more gas stations, we didn't. So you're seeing us with a lot of drivers that get on the freeway, the need for gas. We don't look at metrics, more or less, we let the private market display what that is. And each of these applicants are at their own risk to providing something based upon their economic analysis. But no, we don't weigh anything other than if your use is allowed in that zone, whether it's by development plan permit or conditional use permit, we analyze it by the potential impacts that it may have. But we don't have a limitation on certain use types in certain areas of our city. We believe that the market can produce that reality based upon the risks that our customers do take. And I think that's how our city has been growing. But what you will see is that each of these applicants before us have done a lot of market surveying and economic analysis to tell them that they believe that these specific businesses will be successful in our local economy. And hopefully that addresses your question.
I appreciate the details and specifics. Just looking at that, that was something that kind of came up on a private business side, looking at what those numbers might look like. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fisher, any questions for staff?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to, in lieu of messing it up, I'm just going to address you as FB. Thank you very much for your report on both of these projects and your presentation. Very clear and very defined. I don't believe I've met you before, but congratulations and welcome, and good work.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
But I do have a question regarding setback. I noticed that the setback is only, it's 25 feet to the interior, but yet just go over page 4 of the staff report under setback and explain that a little bit to me, please.
Sure. Please give me one moment.
Because it says the building exceeds the minimum street setback. So I guess that's positive.
Yes, so that's a great question. So the setback shown here on this exhibit here, you'll see that there are various lines shown. This right here, this line that you're seeing here, I believe is a 25-foot setback. So this is indicated here. So this building clears that setback quite a bit. So there was no need for them to really provide a clear exhibit for how much closer they are, but they exceed that 25-foot street side setback as shown there if this dashed line represented that 25-foot setback limit.
And adjacent to a commercial use is 0 or 10 feet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Will this facility do any motor vehicle repairing, or is it strictly just an express oil changer facility?
The applicant's project description only disclosed an express car wash or express oil change facility, not car wash.
So there will be no car repairs on this facility?
That is correct. They're providing an express oil change service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. And I've got a couple questions. The landscape rendering looked very robust. It looked like the landscape was very, very nice. Is that part of the development, like the previously approved development, like the entire square, or is that a part of this project?
Mic wasn't on. So that's a great question. There are certain requirements for the developer to provide perimeter landscaping throughout the site. This specifically shown here is the landscape proposal for this project site to provide this landscape strip here. So initially when the project was approved with the initial entitlement back in 2020, they did not identify a use here. So building setbacks could not really be evaluated and where that structure sits, nor can they identify how wide that is. But for reference, the minimum landscape strip requirement adjacent to public right-of-ways within this commercial designation would be 15 feet. The applicant provides well over the minimum requirement of 15 feet abutting the public right-of-way here.
Okay, and the type of plants and shrubs and trees, the size of them, and all that has already been approved back in 2020?
Currently, they've identified some planting pallets for this project. We do have a conceptual landscape plan that specifically identified the planting materials they'll be using. Right now, that's a conceptual approval. Once we do approve this project, they'll submit for a landscape permit, and that will be formalized during that
Okay,
process.
so that would be separate. Okay, great, thanks for that. And this might be a better question for Brian, but I wanted to get a little bit more clear explanation on the traffic flow, or it sounded like maybe we eliminated a turning lane. I didn't quite follow, what I don't want to call it a mistake, but what the change was for that traffic.
Can you bring the site plan up there?
Yeah, and if you have maybe the mouse, you could kind of show us around.
What's the overall site plan? Is it back? Right there. So right now, how this exhibit shows, this is how we revised the condition to match. The condition, as it was previously written, would have required widening over to this dashed line just about. So it'd be the full width improvements on Date Street.
It would have required the developer to do that work?
Yeah, and that was incorrect.
Okay.
We revised it to match what this plan is showing now, and we're referring to it as the interim condition because it's not the full width improvements yet. And this driveway along Date Street will be allowed to have full access, turning movements, lefts in, lefts out, rights out. In the ultimate condition, when the road's widened, there's going to be 2 northbound lanes along Date Street, 2 southbound lanes along Date Street, and then a long storage pocket at the intersection of Murrieta Hot Springs Road. So they won't be able to have full access there because as part of those improvements, there's also be a raised median constructed along the road. There's gonna be a lot of traffic on this road once French Valley Parkway Phase 3, the full interchange gets built, and a lot more traffic on Date Street.
Right, because Date Street will be an overpass across the 15.
It will be more than it'll be a full interchange.
Full
at the
interchange.
15, yes.
Correct. Now, this isn't really pertaining to this project specifically, but you probably know, where is there going to be a future stoplight coming from the top of existing Date Street down to Murrieta Hot Springs? That's a pretty steep hill coming down what will be future Date Street or new Date Street. Is there a proposed stoplight at this intersection we can see?
There could potentially be one at this intersection right here when the development on the west goes in. When this traffic study was prepared for the 3 different uses within this parcel, the overall parcel, the intersection worked acceptably from a level of service standpoint, so a traffic signal is not warranted. But once we have more traffic on the west side of the roadway intersecting, coming in and out at this intersection, there will likely be the need for a traffic signal there.
So that's something that will evolve as it gets built to its, final stage and final widening,
Yes.
et cetera.
Yep.
Okay, cool. That's all. Thanks for clarifying that. That's all the questions I have for the staff. And at this time, we will open up the public hearing portion. It's 6:37. And with that, we will take testimony from the applicant if the applicant has anything to present. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Mark Cooper, representing RDP Date, the applicant.
Okay, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'll just say a couple of words and just take questions. I was involved in this project on behalf of the landowner and Rancon, the developer, MHS 2.7 retail, several years ago. I think that was one of your first hearings on Zoom, which is more challenging than getting up and speaking in public like
Yeah,
this.
we can all agree to that.
The one point I want to make about the Quick Loop pad is that it is really the synergy of this project. We were involved when the 7-Eleven was done and the Superstar Car Wash, and this left a remainder, a very small remainder parcel. From a retail standpoint, was difficult to identify a tenant, a kiosk of sorts. Most of those foods, coffee, et cetera, are excluded because of the 7-Eleven. So we felt very fortunate to find a Quick Lube, and Oil Changers is a reputable firm out of the Bay Area. They've been around 35 years. They are a California company. And they will do a 2-bay facility, which fits on this parcel. So we kind of talk about the project synergy, which is the convenience store and fuel, the car wash, which is an express tunnel car wash, and then a Quick Lube facility in and out 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm here alone tonight. I'll try to answer questions on behalf of Oil Changers, but I would turn to, rather than assume that you have questions or what you want to know, I'll just take whatever questions you might like to ask me.
Okay, thank you. Should we take public testimony before asking questions to the applicant, or does it not? We have time. Do we have any questions for the applicant pertaining to this? Shaking heads, no? We're good? Well, thanks for coming up, and I think we're satisfied. Great presentation by staff, and thanks for the input.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. And next, we will move on to the public testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments, starting with any proponents, opponents, or those neutral?
Seeing none.
Okay, and we will now close the public hearing at 6:40 p.m. And then take it there's probably not a whole lot of items to discuss, so we can call for a motion and a second.
And Chair LaPaglia, before you do that, I just want to mention that we do have an errata. If the reader into the record can also include at the end that this also decision incorporates the errata, that would help us. Thank you.
So just read
That
it.
was my question. It has to be included into this, does it not?
Yes, thank you. And we did sit down prior to the meeting with Mr. Mark Cooper. He was agreeable to those condition changes. So in order to make sure that those go into the legal record, after this hearing, we'll formally amend the draft conditions of approval at the direction of the Planning Commission. So we do need it stated as part of the record.
Okay. I will take that noted. I'd like to call for a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion. Consider and approve the notice of exemption for an infill development, Class 32 infill exemption pursuant to California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Section 15332 of the Guidelines for Implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, CEQA, C Attachment 5, and adopt the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Murrieta approving development plan permit 2021-2442, DP-2021-2442, and conditional use permit 2021-2444, CUP 2021-2444, for a 1,760 square foot structure and associated improvements for a motor vehicle repair and maintenance, oil change, use located at the northeast corner of Date Street and the Old Date Street, APN 913-350-019, based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibits A and B and the operation statements in Exhibit C. Also incorporated in this is the errata that has been presented to us tonight, needs to be included in this particular recommendation for approval.
Make a motion to second.
All right, thank you. Motion made by Vice Chair Fisher and seconded by Commissioner Harlan. Madam Secretary, can I do a roll call vote?
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Harlan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Fisher.
Aye.
Chair LaPaglia.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously 4-0.
Thank you. City Planner, any comments?
The Planning Commission has rendered a decision on 2 separate projects. That does open up a 10-day appeal period to the public. If anyone has any interest in that, contact counter staff or present yourself in person. Would like to share with the Planning Commission that you recently took action on a fuel station, car wash type of facility. We have received an appeal, and we'll be taking that forward to City Council. Lastly, we have shared with you that we have a League of Cities Academy coming up, and we certainly would like to sign all of you up for that. So if you could get back to Tanya and I on your availability, and back to you, Chair.
All right. Thank you, City Planner. City Attorney, any comments?
No comments, thank you.
No comments. Back to the commission. Any comments from anybody?
I'd just like to say this is my last planning commission. It's been a pleasure and an honor serving with you gentlemen, and getting to know city staff and working with you all. I appreciate the hard work that you guys do that goes into all your reports. The due diligence that you put forth is greatly appreciated and makes it fairly easy for us up here to do what we need to do. So I thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Commissioner Harlan? Anything? Vice Chair?
May I ask a question about the appeal? Was the appeal based upon the decision of what exactly on that particular? I know we approved a portion of it, but is the appeal come back wanting all of it?
The applicant's appeal is asking for everything back except for the propane use. So hours of operation, alcohol sales, and car wash. That would be the request from what we call the appellant, which is the applicant.
So the applicant appealed it, not no one from.
We received a second appeal, which asks that the entirety of the project be presented to City Council. So we do have 2 active appeals on that project. So we will have a comprehensive hearing, if you will. And I believe that will occur sometime in February.
Okay. I've just, James, appreciate your work and dedication up here. Good luck with the promotion. If you guys don't know, Mr. King is on the Riverside County Sheriff, so he's out there doing what we need him to do and protecting our county and making it a better place. So thanks for doing all that, and good luck. And I'm sure I'll bump into you in the future, but it was fun, and although it was short, it was something I'll remember. So pleasure getting to know you, and I'll see you soon. So with that, I think we can conclude tonight's. Actually, let's bring it back to Mr. Ramaya.
No, thank you, Commissioner King. It's been indeed a pleasure to have your diverse opinion on this dais. I think you brought a lot of good points that we weren't even on our radar. I'll pray for you because I know that you work for the sheriffs, and you guys lost a key member of your team recently. And when I first met you, you had a canine, and now you have a horse. So you're pretty amazing at what you do. And again, we pray for you moving forward because the things you do are pretty amazing, and they protect all of us here at the city as well. So even though you work for the county, I consider you one of our own. So thank you so much, Mr. King, for volunteering your time to us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, James. And with that, no further business to discuss. We will now adjourn the meeting at 6:48 p.m. Thank you.